Thanks for watching Live4Die4 Bowhunting. Today I want to talk about IDing bucks. I get asked all the time, how do you know that's the same buck from year in and year out? And sometimes it gets very tricky. But this is definitely geared towards the hunter who holds onto their trail camera pictures or stores them in your computer. I have all of my hunting properties that go back, some of them go back almost 15 years, where I store the trail camera pictures and I watch the progression of certain bucks. And it's real easy to watch their antlers. Yes, they usually grow the same frame, so to speak. But I have plenty of examples where a 10 point can go back to an 8 point, a 8 point can go back to a 6 point, and vice versa. Not to mention all the kickers that they can grow, which usually comes with age. But one thing that does not change, and that is the coloration of their feet. In my opinion, a deer's foot or hair pattern or hair color is like a fingerprint. And in this video, I'm going to give you several examples of how I tracked certain bucks based on the coloration of their feet. But first, I'm going to show you some examples of some scars, marks, or abnormalities. Now, when you see an injury like this is obviously going to leave a lasting scar. But even an injury this gnarly can heal. And here's pictures from the following year. And if you didn't know any better, you would have never known unless you look at detail. Now here's an injury on a buck I nicknamed Rawlings because it looked like he had a Rawlings baseball under his skin. But this probably was fluid, which means it wouldn't have been there the next year, and I definitely would have looked at his feet color. But unfortunately, this was the only year I had pictures of this buck. Here's another example of a gnarly injury, and he's going to be scarred for life and probably limp for life. Which takes me to a hunt on this channel titled a Maryland 164 inch 7x5, where the buck had a similar injury. This was the year I noticed he had a broken left front leg, and I began calling him Clubfoot. On this October afternoon, I finally got to see him in person. I shot him with the camera and got some good video of that broken leg. This is a buck I call Clubfoot. 3 years of pictures. Easy. Look at that foot where he broke it when he was young. It's been really easy to track him on trail cameras. Here's a buck I watched for 4 years. I nicknamed him Headache. He had a point coming out of his forehead. He also has that white patch of hair between his eyes. He only became a management buck, and after 2018, I never saw him again. Here's a buck I tracked for 5 years. I nicknamed him Snot. It looked like someone hocked a loogie on his face. I honestly believe when bucks have white marks on their face that they're actually birthmarks. Here is a buck I tracked for 9 years. Year number 1, which was 2010, I had him pegged at either 3 or 4 years old. So in 2018, the last year I had pictures, he was either 11 or 12 years old. He was very unique. I called him Cutthroat because of the line that came down from his throat patch. But if you take a look at his feet, he also had no white on his feet at all. So I ended up passing this buck up in 2011, hoping he would blow into something big, but he actually never did. So I never killed this buck, but I did get 2 shed antlers over the years. And during these 9 years, his antlers constantly changed from 8, 9, and 10 points to sometimes kickers and sometimes no kickers. So now we will look at bucks that I tracked solely on their feet color. This was a buck I nicknamed Ape Hangers, and he is a fantastic example of how feet color helped me identify this buck the following season. The following season, he grew typical antlers. His feet matched, but then I noticed that he had a slit in his right ear. That confirmed that the feet color did match, and the rest of this buck's life, he grew typical antlers. So notice when a deer gets its winter coat, it can cover up the slits in their ears, making identifying their feet coloration that much more important. On the 5th year of tracking this buck, he was unfortunately hit by a car in August. I was lucky enough to get photos from the freezer, and you can see the slit ear. I knew this buck was gone forever at this point. So this is a button buck that I filmed, and he had one of the coolest looking foot colorations I had ever seen. It actually looks like little bucks on his feet. Look close enough and it looks like a deer facing you with little antlers. I located him the following season based on his foot coloration, and he had turned into a 5-point. After this, I never saw him again because unfortunately I lost permission to hunt this land. Now we have a buck I nicknamed Little Big Head. He had no white on his feet. He was pretty much gray and black on his feet, which is how I tracked him. Each year he would change from a 7-point to an 8-point, and he would grow kickers on different years. On the 4th year of hunting him, I had this encounter with him. This is when self-filming can drive you crazy. I never got a shot on this buck because the camera was between me and the tree. I could not draw my bow. Which is another reason why the footage is so sloppy, because I was completely twisted in the tree. And this is what happens when a mature buck sees corn on the ground and a trail camera for the first time. I am not slowing this footage down. This is him walking extremely cautiously. Hunting over corn has its pros and cons. I do both, but it's not always bulletproof. I never saw Little Big Head again in person. The following 2 seasons, he shrunk down to a 6-point. Next buck I nicknamed Lopside. I tracked him for 5 years based on the white hair on his feet, and every single year his antlers grew differently. The next example is a buck I named Toothpicks. The white hair on his feet looked like toothpicks. I first began keeping tabs on him in 2016, and I had this encounter with him, and I passed him up. In 2017, I identified him again by the toothpicks on his feet. And I had another encounter with him on a hunt on this channel titled Pre-Rut Madness. As you can see, that 10-point's name is Toothpicks. I already passed him up once in September, and he's off the list. He's a stud, and he came straight in down that hill at me and then snort wheezed like 5 yards in front of me, which was awesome. So I identified him again in 2018, and he was back to being a heavy 8-point. Now the cool thing is when you pick up on a hair pattern, you can go back in time when you didn't know the buck even existed, and you can find a picture when the buck was much younger, and you can ID them based on their foot pattern again. This was a buck I nicknamed Spock. Unfortunately, I only got to track him by his feet color for 2 years because he was killed by a poacher the following season in 2013. But as you can see, his antlers grew completely different. So the last buck I will cover is a buck I nicknamed Little Monster. I tracked him for 2 years, killing him on the 2nd year, and as you can see, his front legs look like he's wearing socks, and he has real big white triangles between his hooves. This hunt was covered on one of my YouTube shorts titled Buck Explodes in 1 year. So here we are at the beginning of October. I'm already on the board, and Live4Die4, absolutely love it. Travis Fowble from Maryland. Well, hopefully you found this video informative and you learned a thing or two. I know it's never been covered on any social media platform or on the internet, and obviously tracking deer with deformities is much easier, but it gets old trying to guess if you know this buck from year in and year out. But if you have a hair coloration on their feet, trust me, it works. Give it a try. Start keeping your photos and examine them, and pay attention to detail, and you will be surprised. You may figure out that you can track a buck for years based on the hair coloration like I have shown in this video. Well, thanks again for watching Live4Die4 Bowhunting. Good luck to everybody, and be safe.